In this module, we'll be looking at spotting food-related self-harm methods. This is again going back to module 1 and branching off of eating disorders. Now, signs of starvation intent. In this part of spotting signs of self-harm, we will look at those who use food-related issues as a form of self-harm. Anorexia nervosa is probably the biggest cause of food-related self-harm. This is undeniably a mental illness that can affect both boys and girls. A self-loathing of the body is the main cause of this. So some self-harmers who use these methods tend to state that their body is overweight, when in reality self-starvation has resulted in a self-induced malnutrition. The clear signs that your self-harmer is deliberately not taking food are hiding food in clothes, such as pockets or dropping food onto the floor, thus making the food inedible. It's hard to think that a child would do such things to themselves. However, research suggests that any eating disorder can be exacerbated by bullying alone. And unfortunately, in my own opinion, today's society is getting far more cutthroat on images. So if you don't look a certain weight, there is this avalanche of pressure that's on you to be something else that you're not, if you get what I mean. Now, a study completed by the UK charity BEAT found that out of the 600 participants surveyed, 90% of respondents admitted to being bullied at some point in their lives, with more than 75% of the individuals suffering from an eating disorder admitting that bullying was a significant cause for the cause of that disorder. Just think about that. 600 people taking a survey with 90% and 75% of people admitting that they had an eating disorder. That is a massive amount of people. If you were to put it on a scale, just to think that if every 600 people, that is not the exact number, but if there were 600 people, that was the number. That is a massive amount of effect across the globe, not just in the UK. Bullying damages self-esteem. Self-esteem being damaged destroys the body image, which both can make the individual, adult or child, susceptible to developing an eating disorder such as anorexia, again, which we said in the beginning was the most common type, bulimia, which is the weight fluctuating even by 1 or 2 pounds, not dramatically dropping and rising, or binge eating. This information can be found on Eating Disorder Hope, which the link is in the description, so if you want to download it, follow along, go onto the website, you're welcome to do so on the Open Learning website. Although bullying is vastly related to eating disorders, we have to consider the other forms of degrading behaviour as well. It's not like, that's it, bullying, that's it. Not necessarily just that. Signs that we're looking for are hiding the appearance of facial features, excessive makeup, jewellery, hairbands are signs that someone has been abused about their looks. Let's just make this point very clear. This is abuse of another person. Most of the time though, I would suggest that it's not about the person's looks, it's rather that they look infinitely better than those who are abusing them. Jealousy is the highest form of contempt. Again, I can't English it there, I'm sorry. Now, wearing excessive amounts of clothing, mainly because of once being called fat, is another sign of someone who is self-harming by the way of refusing food. So if they realise they're losing weight, they'll put on extra layers to compensate, to make it look like, oh, I'm fine. Okay, look at me, same size. When really it's just multiple layers of clothing. Now, as I mentioned, some people who have a fear of being overweight because of being bullied in the past may even have mirrors that distort their appearance of the self-harm. Usually after putting on at least 3 layers of clothes, this gives the effect of a concave mirror of the person being larger than they actually are. So you can think of it like a funhouse mirror. It can either make you thinner by the way the mirror bends, or make you larger when it's pushed downwards. Please be aware that this is again episodic behaviour. It is not on a calendar, it's not on a schedule, it just happens through triggers. For anorexia and bulimia sufferers, do not think that these self-harmers do not eat. That is a true misconception. Each facet of the self-harmer can be related to bullying. It is sometimes hard to spot the signs of the self-harmer in a bulimic patient, as they move from one direction to the other when self-harming. As I quickly touched on, it was bulimic patients' weight go up and down. It's not they're extremely big at one time and then they're super skinny. It varies. It is not an equal stable weight. It can vary from 1 or 2 pounds, that's it. Clear signs are that food has been stashed, medication has been taken from the medicine cabinet, if you have one, or box. Irritability about being around family members. The most common are mainly uncles and aunts, grandparents, and so forth, covering up the body. Sometimes, if loss of weight has happened, there are more clothes to wash. Now, I would think that it's a bit harder to tell the younger children because they generally just don't care. Oh, I've got all this washing, it is clean, there you go. So there will be several other different telltale signs. Now, with binge eating, you will find that a binge eater will enjoy certain foods above others. The binge eater will look for these foods always. One sign that you are dealing with a binge eater is if the food you put in front of them is not what they like. In the scaling lecture, we'll be discussing ways that you can find out better if your self-harmer is a binge eater. Therefore, trying to find coping methods for your self-harmer is of paramount importance when considering the way forward with this treatment. This isn't like cutting or bumming, burning, branding. It isn't anything like that. This is them taking away the functions of their body. As we know, food is energy. It is our fuel. It makes our bones stronger. It makes our brains work. It gives oxygen to our body. It makes us function. They're taking away a vital factor of them being able to function properly and the ability of them to stay alive. De-scaling techniques, which will be discussed later, will help you try and get to grips with how's the best to start with the healing process the healing of the effects of bullying. Although fluctuations in weight loss often occur as a part of teens' normal growth patterns, drastic loss or gain in weight can potentially indicate something far more serious. Sudden weight changes might happen as a routine as a part of the growth spurt, or they might be red flags for an emotional disorder or eating disorder. To discuss any concerns with your teen's growth with his doctor, his or her doctor, who can help you discover the cause of their rapid weight loss or gain. Again, there is another link on the website which can be found on the presentation. So, you may be thinking, how do binge eaters differ from others? Well, if we were to take a look into account that a binge eater will store larger amounts of food in places where they are more likely to do this, that that is harder than you think. But you'll probably think it will be easier than it is. Firstly, a binge eater will hide food, sometimes in clear display, without eating it. The tactic is called covert hiding and can occur next to ordinary foods in the cupboards. Hiding foods under the bed is okay if the child knows that you're not going to go in and clean the room. If you do, score lockers are a great way for a binge eater to hide their food. And people tend to forget that the most easy thing to hide something is to put it in plain sight, because you're looking for small telltale signs. That's been tucked, that's been moved. It could just be right in front of your face and you won't notice. And yes, the binge eater will find unimaginable places to hide food from you. To think of this, if your child spends more time with their friends than what is usual, then you may find that they are hiding food in clear sight in their bags. But one other clear sign is that if you hand them pocket money and then they buy things you think is okay, but pay less than the asking price, leaving money for food, Poundland is a good example as to sell all the goods a binge eater will need to keep up presents with you. Keep presents with you. Pretense. I'm really struggling. Do not, however, think that reducing pocket money will stop the binge eating experience. It won't. Each of these disorders are related to a mental health, bullying and self-awareness. Increasing how the child can cope will be discussed later. Now, with other relational food eating disorders, if we just take these three, you'll find that some of the ideas for your self-harm may be similar to each other. For instance, night eating disorder. If they refuse food at the dinner table, then it is increasingly likely that they are following the signs of a binge eating disorder. Each is triggered either with a person perpetrating an act, or a word, a term, or a phrase that can lead to serious medical problems in the future. You will find that they're all interlinked. But thank you again for listening to the presentation. I hope you found it helpful.